Have you ever noticed how showing someone clear evidence often makes them more convinced they're right, not less? That reaction isn't stubbornness, it's psychology. Why this affects you personally every day, you make decisions based on what you believe is true. About money, about relationships, about work, about people. But psychology shows something uncomfortable. Humans don't naturally protect truth, they protect beliefs. Understanding why people defend wrong beliefs doesn't just explain arguments online. It explains failed investments, broken relationships, bad leadership, and why smart people repeat the same mistakes. And by the end of this video, you'll notice this pattern not only in others, but in yourself. 1. The brain treats beliefs like identity. One of the strongest findings in psychology is this. Beliefs are rarely just information. They become part of identity. Research in social psychology shows that when a belief is challenged, the brain reacts similarly to a personal threat. The amygdala, your threat detection system, becomes active. Logic steps back. Defense steps forward. This is why debates feel emotional even when the topic is factual. If someone believes they are good with money, evidence that they made poor financial decisions feels like an attack on who they are. If someone believes they are a smart judge of character, proof they trusted the wrong person feels humiliating. So instead of updating the belief, the mind protects the self-image. That's why people say things like, "They're biased. That study is fake." You're taking it out of context. Not because they evaluated the evidence, but because accepting it would damage how they see themselves. And this leads to a surprising outcome. The more intelligent someone is, the better they often become at defending the wrong belief. In the next section, you'll see why intelligence can increase belief defense rather than reduce it. 2. Confirmation bias makes wrong feel right. Confirmation bias is one of the most studied cognitive biases in psychology. It describes the brain's tendency to seek information that supports existing beliefs, ignore or dismiss information that contradicts them. This happens automatically. You don't choose it. Studies from institutions like Harvard and Stanford show that people rate evidence as strong or weak, depending on whether it agrees with what they already believe. Same data, different judgment. This is why two people can watch the same event, read the same article, or hear the same statistics, and walk away more divided than before. In everyday life, confirmation bias looks like this. You remember the one time a shortcut worked, not the 5 times it failed. You notice stories that support your opinion, not the quiet evidence against it. You trust sources that agree with you and question the credibility of those that do over time. This creates a psychological echo chamber. The belief feels more true not because it is true, but because it feels familiar, and familiarity is powerful. Psychologists call this the illusory truth effect. The more often you hear something, the more true it feels, even if it's false. But confirmation bias alone doesn't explain the intensity of belief defense. That comes from something deeper. 3. Admitting you're wrong has a psychological cost. Changing a belief isn't just an intellectual update, it's an emotional loss. Psychology refers to this as cognitive dissonance, the discomfort that arises when reality conflicts with what you believe. To reduce this discomfort, the brain has 2 options. Change the belief, change the interpretation of reality. Option 2 is easier. If someone invested years into a belief about a career path, a relationship, a financial strategy, admitting it was wrong means admitting wasted time, energy, and identity. That hurts. So the mind rewrites the story. It would have worked if conditions were different. Everyone else is doing worse. The system is rigged anyway. This isn't lying, it's self-protection. Neuroscience research shows that emotional discomfort can override logical reasoning, especially when pride, status, or public image are involved. That's why people defend beliefs more aggressively when others are watching. Public commitment locks beliefs in place. And this explains something important. People rarely change beliefs during arguments, which leads to the next insight. 4. Social belonging often matters more than truth. Humans evolved as social creatures. Belonging kept us alive. Because of that, the brain often prioritizes group acceptance over factual accuracy. If a belief connects you to a group, political, cultural, professional, or social, letting go of it risks isolation. Psychology studies show that people are more likely to defend false beliefs when their social circle agrees with them. Their status depends on the belief. Disagreement threatens belonging. This is why people double down in group settings but may privately express doubt. The belief becomes a signal. This is who I am. This is where I belong. In workplaces, this shows up as defending bad strategies because leadership supports them. In relationships, it looks like justifying harmful behavior to protect the image of the relationship. In money decisions, it appears as holding onto failing investments because everyone else in the group believes in them. Truth becomes secondary to loyalty, and once a belief becomes socially reinforced, evidence alone rarely breaks it. So what actually does? 5. Why facts alone rarely change minds. One of the most uncomfortable findings in psychology is this. Facts don't change beliefs nearly as often as we think. Large-scale studies on belief revision show that people are more open to change when they don't feel judged, their identity isn't threatened, they feel psychologically safe when facts are presented as attacks. The brain activates defense mode. When they're presented as information, curiosity can activate instead. This is why asking questions works better than giving lectures. Questions invite reflection. Statements invite resistance. For example, what made you believe that? When did you first become convinced? What evidence would change your mind? These don't force change, but they open a mental door. And here's the key insight most people miss. Belief change is slow. It often happens quietly over time without public admission. The brain updates privately before it ever does publicly. The uncomfortable truth: people don't defend wrong beliefs because they're stupid. They defend them because they're human. Beliefs protect identity. They reduce uncertainty. They preserve belonging. And once you understand this, something changes. You argue less. You observe more. You become harder to manipulate because you start noticing when your own beliefs feel emotionally protected rather than logically supported. The real advantage isn't proving others wrong. It's recognizing when your mind is doing the same thing, because the most difficult belief to challenge is always your own.